Welcome everybody to another reaction video. This time, episodes 5 and 6. Episode 5 started off with the All Star Game, the 1998 All Star Game, where it showcased Michael Jordan, of course, who took home the MVP. But that kind of wasn't what stole the show, I guess you could say. It was more about Kobe Bryant. So the episode was dedicated to him. You saw him speak. I feel like that was a recent interview. I know a lot of people this might have been done a long time ago, but I feel like that was a recent video. Just because he looked a little bit older. I know that's dumb to say, maybe, but he didn't. He definitely didn't look back in like 2016 or 17. If I watched his more recent, where he was on like podcast, it doesn't look that far off. So I feel like that was probably a little bit before his death. Not that much, prior to, actually. So yeah, it was kind of neat to see how all the players kind of reacted to Kobe. And they all knew he was going to be something special. MJ definitely knew. You saw some stuff where like Grant Hill was saying that he didn't want to be in a poster, and I remember being a little kid, watching that game, and I've said this before. I was just like, wow, like, Kobe, you don't have any respect. Like, how are you going at, this legend? That was me being a dumb kid. Obviously, huge Jordan fan, huge Bulls fan. So, you see this kid come in and just thinks that he's the best, And now I respect that. Now I really enjoy that, obviously. So it kind of started off with that. These past episodes weren't very much. You didn't learn that much about the season that they recorded this. They filmed this on the 97-98 season. It was a lot of backstory, a lot of things leading up to certain things, such as so they used, like I said, they're very great at bringing something in and going to the back. So they use that, obviously, where Magic Johnson comes in, Larry Bird comes in for that All-Star game, because Larry Bird was his coach, coaching the East when he was coaching the Pacers. So he was coach, and then Magic Johnson was there just, hanging out, whatever. It's the All-Star game. And they used that to go into the Dream Team, which is really cool. Also, we found out, how MJ felt about Clyde Drexler, because the Bulls beat them in the 92 championship. So they kind of went back to the 92 championship, and then they kind of eased into the 92 Dream Team. Something I learned from Jordan on that is, he really, I feel people might take that as a bad thing, where he said about Clyde Drexler that, he wanted to prove that they weren't on the same level. I don't see anything wrong with that. That's basically, you're trying to put a guy, you're trying to say that, all the hard work that I've put in, everything that I've done, you're trying to say that he's put the same amount of work and he deserves to be on my level. And when you know how hard you work, or when you're doing something, how you value yourself, the last thing you want to hear or have people thinking that there's someone else putting the same amount of work or doing the same thing as you, and when that's not true. That doesn't mean that Clyde Drexler wasn't putting hard work or was a great player, but it's just on a different, like, MJ just wanted to prove that he was on a different level, and he used that as motivation. And we saw what happened in the 92 finals. Came down, hit 6 threes. I think it was 36 points versus Clyde Drexler's 19, something like that. So he was just so competitive that he just wanted to set himself apart. Like, he wanted you to know that. And I felt like he looked for different challenges and stuff like that, in order to achieve that stuff. So I like that. I thought that was great to hear about Jordan. Magic Johnson said some stories, but it was really interesting to talk about the dream team. Isaiah Thomas has been in the news recently, you know, talking about if he was snubbed off that team and he thinks it was Jordan. Jordan's come out and said that it wasn't him. I don't want to say yes, it was. Did he not want to play with them? Probably not. But I feel like Jordan could have played with him just because, you know, obviously Jordan, look at what they did with Rodman. You know, if they accepted Dennis Rodman, um, uh, you know, and then there's so many other players. But that's the thing. I felt like it was other players that didn't want to play with Isaiah, but they just don't want to say anything. They don't want to come out and say it, and they're just letting Jordan take the blame for it, I guess. But either way, there was a time where the Olympics weren't even looked at as something valuable to go to. So I get it. It sucks that Isaiah Thomas wasn't part of that team when he pretty much deserved to be. But at the same time, it's like, it's how many years have passed? Like, you just got to get over at this point, you know? And he's been in the media a lot, talking a lot about just nonsense stuff. I'm sorry, you know, nonsense stuff. Trying to say that the Bulls used an old John Sally, an old Edwards. I think his name is James Edwards. I know they call him Buddha. And Dennis Rodman, and taking philosophy from the Pistons to become the dynasty that they were, which is insane because they won 3 championships with none of those players, with nobody from the Pistons. I don't feel they needed any help from the Pistons in order to win 3 more championships. I mean, granted, yes, they needed Rodman, but I don't think Rodman came and said, "Hey, we did this with the Pistons. Let's, you know, put that here with the Bulls." So I feel he's bitter, and I guess he can be, but I mean, how long is he gonna be like that? Jordan has came out and said that he thinks he's the second best point guard ever, you know, and you got Isaiah Thomas saying that Jordan is the 4th best player that he ever played against. So who's really holding the grudge? It seems like Isaiah Thomas. But during those Olympics, then you got to kind of see more about, you know, Jordan, how he influenced the game globally, how Nike kind of helped push that, such as, you know, he loved the brand so much, you know, and he really believed in the brand and what he was about, that, you know, he covered the Reebok logo on the USA uniforms because he just couldn't do it. He didn't want to be seen wearing another brand. So he would put the American flag over. Of course, you know, that caused some controversy. What else did they cover? They covered Tony Kukoc issue. Tony Kukoc had been drafted in 1990, I think, by the Bulls, but for some reason, I don't know about this. I don't know why, but for some reason, the Bulls did it with Niko Mirotic as well. For some reason, they'll draft a player and then they won't come for, you know, 3-4 years or something like that. So that, I don't understand how that works or why that works. But the Bulls drafted Tony Kukoc. Jerry Krause believed that he was going to be the next Jordan, basically, or, you know, he was going to be the future of the Bulls. And of course, he raved about Tony Kukoc. And Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan took that personally. It wasn't towards Tony Kukoc, but it was more like, Jordan said the best analogy, like, you have your kids, you know, they're giving you everything, and then you see somebody else, you know, someone else's kids, you want someone else's kids, in a way. I think that's pretty true, you know. I feel like we always fight for our parents' approval or anything like that, and then if they give credit to somebody else, it's kind of like, what? Like, I'm your kid. I'm doing everything I can. So they took it personally. They kind of guarded him, very tough, made it, you know, tough for him, and that's a story that I've already known. You know, it's been covered. I'm sure a lot of people already know that, you know. So they talked a little bit about that. They interviewed Tony on that stuff. And then you know, they kind of jumped into the 93 championship, you know, that was with Charles Barkley, but what they really focused on was his gambling, Jordan's gambling. You can't even call them problems. You can't call them issues because, like he said, I don't have a problem with gambling. I have a problem with competing. And he just happens to be, using money or absurd amounts of money or getting mixed in with the wrong crowds. I don't know, but the way I look at it is, if he's got the money, if he's covering it, and even if he would throw his life away, that is his decision. Who are we, or who are you, or anybody to tell someone how to live their life? That's their decision. I don't know why that was blown up, why that was looked at as a bad thing. Again, he's a grown man, millions of dollars at the time, because now he has billions, but millions of dollars. And it's his choice if he wants to lose a basketball game because he was out all night. They covered when in the Knicks, after a game one loss in the Eastern Conference Finals in '93, he went to a casino with his father and some friends. And then he came back. He said like at 12 or 1, and he kind of addressed it like, I needed to take my mind off the game of basketball, which sometimes is a good thing. If when you're deep into something and you kind of hit that roadblock or whatever, you kind of got to take a break from it. You got to step away. So I mean, that was his way of doing it. That was what he wanted to do. Who are we to say that that's what you can't do? I feel like sometimes us people, we kind of overthink a lot of things, and who cares? It's his life. It's his basketball career. If he wants to go down in the records books, maybe they lose that series. That would be up to him if he wants to get blamed by people. And I can't get mad at him for that. Whatever. It's just a game after all. Yeah, we want to see our teams win, but if you think about it, it's his choice. He's the one getting paid, not us. He can do whatever he wants. But anyways, they end up winning the series after all because he wanted to prove that was, he took that as motivation even, and then he shuts out the media, doesn't talk to anybody for a while, for about 2 weeks, ignores them, does his thing. They win 2 games in Chicago. Now you got to remember, most teams, when you start off on the road, the first 2 games, you're like, you try to steal one. If not, you're going back home. It doesn't become a series until a home team loses. So therefore, I mean, yeah, they lost 2-0, but you got to know it's Michael Jordan. It's the Chicago Bulls. Like, they can bounce back from that, and they've shown that they could, back then. So then they ended up beating the Knicks in a physical, rough series, which was, I didn't get to watch those games. But, I would look back at stuff and I watch old games and I look at highlights, and it was almost like playing the Pistons again. That's what it seemed like. They were just getting roughed up and almost getting into fights. And, Patrick Ewing and Jordan were considered friends, I guess. I don't know if they still are, but they were friends. And to see them going at it, I think that's awesome. You really don't see that no more. You got people, yeah, they compete against each other, such as like, you might see LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, or Chris Paul, Kevin Durant. They play against each other and they go hard, but it's not that like, I want to kill you, mentality. It's more like, I'm gonna beat you. Whoever wins, pay. Whoever loses pays for dinner type of bet, more than like no, I'm gonna crush you. I wish I would see that a little more. I haven't seen nothing like that since I'm Kobe. I think Westbrook kind of does it. I would say Harden is competitive, but he's more like, I don't know, James Harden, he's more like in his own world. Like, he wants to worry about he wants to win, but he's more interested in like his stats and just like, I don't know. It's he's an anomaly to me, because like, I feel like if he seemed more competitive, I think that would make him a lot more better, if that makes sense. He's great already. He's good, but he's just kind of nonchalant about it. Whereas I feel if he was like, had that mean attitude, that streak, like I think people would fear him even more, But so, obviously they advance past the Knicks, then they get into the finals to play the Phoenix Suns. Charles Barkley and another friend of Jordan's, and basically they end up winning. Obviously, we know that. So they win. They lose the first game, then win the second, and then it's like, oh, they're going back home for 3 games because back then it was 2, 3, and then 2. So that didn't happen. Barkley turned it around. They won another game here in Chicago, so they had to go back, and the Bulls finished them off in Phoenix. That game I did watch. Oddly enough, I had gone to a cousin's wedding, and we got back home, and I had an older brother at the time, so he was into sports, so that's flipped on the channel, and that's what we kind of watched. I remember watching Celebration and all that stuff. Not too much, just enough to know that I remember coming home, and we finished watching the end of that game, which is a incredible game where Jordan scored all the points for the Bulls in the fourth quarter, except for the one basket that put them up with John Paxson to win the game. That's Jordan for you, There was also a piece in there where they talked about they asked Ahmad Rashad, asked Jordan. I think they're still in Barcelona, and he said, "Who's taking the last shot? If it's the last second shot, who's taking it?" And Jordan's like, "Me." Like, it's a stupid question, basically, And I feel like there's not too many people. Okay, I feel like LeBron wouldn't say that. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. And the only reason I bring up LeBron is because I know a lot of people are doing that. A lot of people are comparing right now. A lot of people are going crazy saying, but there's just not too many comparisons other than that they're basketball players, I don't really see how you can compare them. LeBron has size. He's huge. He's gifted in other ways than Jordan. LeBron, hell of a player, great player. It's just not the same. LeBron, like I said, he'll put that bet like, oh, loser's gonna pay for dinner, whereas Jordan is like, no, I'm gonna crush you. Trust me, I'm gonna beat you, and I'm gonna show you why I'm the best. And I just don't feel like there's a lot of that in today's game. Westbrook, I feel he's out there. Maybe KD, but just in a different way. He likes to win. Obviously, I can tell he's competitive. Watching him, he's got a little bit of mean streak, but it's just not on the level of like Kobe, Jordan, those people who just want to win. Even Magic, I saw him. I didn't get to see him play that much or at all, really, other than 96, but that was a different Magic. And you saw he was talking trash to Jordan, and that would have been awesome if they would have filmed more stuff from those practices. I feel like there should have been a documentary on that dream team. It would have been. I think it would have been great, but obviously the cameras were different and everything's different back then than what it is now. But I feel social media, if that was around back then, imagine if they blew up the Jordan stuff through newspapers or asking them questions. Imagine what would happen now, with Instagram, with Facebook, Snapchat, Twitter, all that stuff. Like, I think it'd be back then. I don't think he would have had a life. I don't know if he would have played basketball for as long as he did. I think he would have just called it, one championship, and I'm calling it. I'm done. But it kind of ends with, basically what's going to happen next in the next episode. It's going to be about retirement. He kind of hinted toward that. So he breaks his 2-week silence with the media, tells Ahmad Rashad, grab a camera, let's talk, addresses everything, addresses, his gambling, all that stuff, talks about that. And there was this thing where Ahmad says, like, basically, when are you going to be done? He's like, soon. That could be soon. So I think he was already, he says he was mentally, like, drained, tired, from playing. And I feel like when I watched Jordan play, I don't necessarily think he was ever physically tired. It was just always, mentally drained, especially that last season that they filmed, he carried that team for so long, and then he was, dealing with so much in 93 that I think he was ready, man. He's like, he just wanted to win that 3, something that Magic and Larry couldn't do. He wanted to win the 3 in a row. and I think he was done and had his mind made up. I don't know if he was thinking about going to play baseball, but I do feel that he was, thinking I'm done. I'm ready to walk away from the game. He did it all. So that's where it kind of ends right there. We'll have to see what happens in episode 7 and 8, but I hope you enjoyed this little recap reaction video. Thanks to everybody who's been watching this little series so far, because I've enjoyed The Last Dance. I love it. I have them recorded, and I probably won't delete them because I think they're great. And I have just loved this, and I hope to show my kids this stuff one day somehow show them all who Jordan was. But let me know your guys' thoughts if you guys are watching it still. Maybe if you're here, I don't know if you're here watching because you didn't watch it and you're trying to get a recap, or you just want to see what people have to say. But regardless, thank you for watching, and we'll see you guys next week for episode 7 and 8. R.I.P. Kobe. Peace.